Hello, my friends, and welcome back. I'm Chisgule Gaming, and in today's video, sponsored by the makers of Call of Dragons, it's over, baby. Our last season has ended. We're on to the next one, hopefully sometime soon, although we might have a skip. And I wanted to talk about what kingdoms or realms will be doing now that things have wrapped up. And as I've been making predictions for the future of the game, I may as well continue on my path of making these predictions. All right, so first order of business, let's just talk about the last season we had. I got a bunch of amber this last season, which is huge. I pulled down, 33.5 million merits. My dead troop count is getting to a pretty decent spot. I'm up to 4.1 million dead troops here. And my goal is to keep kind of pushing that number up and doing a decent job on merits season over season. And there we go. So for me, I think this was a pretty solid season overall. But here's what I think. The realms are doing after this last round. All right. And these are my predictions on what, each kingdom is sort of doing for itself and ought to be doing. Okay. And for those of you kind of just tuning in, I made a bunch of predictions. I said that some realms were really beating their chest saying, oh, we're the best there are. And, we're the fighter realms, blah, blah, blah. And they had power. So they gathered more players who have power. And the truth of whether or not a realm is a fighter realm was really kind of outed in this last season. That is by virtue of this sort of calling of, it was the Dragon Fall format where you can't stack the deck in your favor. And groups that have had the deck stacked in their favor season over season found out that they aren't as potentially strong of a fighter group as they thought they were. And we saw this happen in Rise of Kingdoms right after Migration opened up. Same story. Here we are. Same pattern. So I predicted that some number of kingdoms will emerge as the new actual strongest kingdoms, the ones that actually can maintain a fighter environment. And some of those groups are the same ones that have been around all along. It's just they'll finally get the recognition of being what they are. And also, I think, some groups are going to emerge. And so when we talk about groups emerging, there's a couple things that need to happen, okay, that I think are happening right now as a result of this last sort of season. And the first thing that a strong group will do that has realized they're actually kind of overrated or were overrated, even if they won, is they're going to go and they're going to clean up their dead weight. And I know that sounds kind of unfun, and it's always an unpopular take when I say clean up your dead weight. But the reality is that anyone who contributes to matchmaking that does not actually punch at a relevant level of strength is dead weight to your kingdom. And this just is what it is. So you really need to be in a situation where those players don't exist in your kingdom. And at the end of the day, you either play the game or lose to the people who do. The game is to have sort of a true weighting where you punch as hard as your players actually, will contribute. And to get to a true rating, you got to cut your dead weight. It just is what it is. That's how it goes. People hate to hear it, but that is reality. And I think the biggest kingdoms in the game are now faced with that reality check. So how well those leaders handle the trimming is going to be a big deal. It's a part of the reason why I'm losing power season over season is even I myself am trimming down. And when it comes time to remove dead weight from the kingdom, I'm also doing my part to clear those folks out, which means I lose power, which is fine. I am going to gain a bunch of power at some point, by the way, when the time comes for an infantry city theme, because apparently I'm just infantry obsessed in every game I play. I do wish I had gotten the 10% health theme, but oh well. GG is what it is. I couldn't have won it, I think, at the time against the group we were competing against. So, in fact, people who could train more than me, as I recall, ended up losing. So I've just been hoarding speed ups. Eventually, I'll train for one of those. I keep dancing back and forth between my account and what's going to happen in the game. But that's one thing that's happening, is a sort of trimming out of dead weight. The other thing that will happen is some of the overrated groups will be, in my opinion, unable to recover from the combination of the sort of amount they've been saying they were able to perform and the reality, and people are going to migrate out, which always happens. When you lose, people typically migrate out, and go somewhere else. They look for something different. And, there's a number of reasons why that's the case. I feel like here in BDO, we've had a pretty amazing situation where, yeah, we've taken losses. And like, for the most part, the core of this group hasn't changed, which is actually kind of insane. So the fact that we're battle tested through a loss is kind of a big deal. But like through a loss, kingdoms do a couple different things, right? Like they either trim up, get stronger, build with the foundation they have, or they don't have the courage to trim up. Their best players will leave and then they're cooked. And that's an important thing to talk about just very briefly, which is that in this style of game, it's like very easy to unintentionally cater to your least contributors, your lowest contributors. And what does that mean? That means that, like whoever is not online all that much or hasn't contributed all that much, you're very tolerant, blah, blah, blah. Like the worst thing you can do for your active players is not be aggressive against your least active players. That's it. The literal worst thing you can do for your active players is to not be aggressive against your least active players. And, there's a threshold for like, what does it mean to be aggressive? And what does it mean to be least active, right? So you decide for yourself. But like, the more serious you are as a kingdom, the more activity you need to require. It's just like very logical, right? Like if you say you're the best, then you need to be super active. Anyways, this sort of thing is like common sense. But let me put it this way. When I used to work in, an office, okay, with regard to hiring, and what I would encourage hiring managers to think about is, A players hire A players, B players hire C players, and C players make A players want to quit. And the same ends up being true of your kingdom, right? So your best players are going to hire other best players. Your mid-tier players are not actually going to be all that great at recruiting. So if you have mid-tier players doing your recruiting, you need to go reevaluate that. But your mid-tier players only end up recruiting not as impressive players as they are. And then your lowest tier of players makes your best players want to quit if you're not careful, right? So the key when you think about like, how do we, prune our alliance and get it to be what it needs to be is to say like, okay, like, is our lowest tier of performers so low that our best tier of performers will be offended? And this happens. Okay, this actually happens. It's very counterintuitive in some ways, but when I explain it in the same as a work context, like, you've had to work with someone who sucked, it, and it made you want to quit. What are we talking about? You've been there. You've been there. Everybody's experienced this. So that's why, pruning in your community and making sure you got like all top tier contributors is kind of a big deal. All right. And those are the sort of activities that people are doing. Now, on top of that, of course, players are working on their own individual accounts. I'm honestly kind of like floundering a little bit with like what pet to work on at the moment. I've got my, moon bear that makes people reconsider their life choices. And I haven't even fed this thing any pet food yet. I'm honestly like torn for whether or not I invest in moon bear. I've done like maybe 6 to 12 rallies. I feel like if we include the city rallies, it goes way up. But outside of city rallies, I've just not had that many rally opportunities with my moon bear. But the results have been like obviously like really, really good. And maybe I should be doing more videos with the moon bear rallies over here. But some of these are not my moon bear. This is my moon bear. Where are we at? Here's my moon bear again. Yeah. Yo, the moon bear does the thing, right? But yeah, I favorite all the big reports when I rally something, but like I haven't done much of it, right? So anyways, all that to say, I'm definitely looking forward to more opportunities to rally stuff. And with regard to pet investments, even I'm already like, I don't know, if I'm going to put fruit into this thing, I probably want to put fruit into a pet like right when it becomes the meta. Do you see what I'm saying? That way you get like maximum enjoyment, maximum punishment, like try to max out all the skills right away. I don't know, man. I'm just a hoarder. Don't listen to my advice. Don't listen to my advice unless you actually want like day one dominance. And if you do, hoarding ends up being just an insane strategy. You just got to spend it all at some point. All right. So GG. So I'm kind of prepping for the next season, like I said, saving up even my pet stuff. And I don't know, like I can work a little bit on a shadow just because, as it turns out, like this works for rallying and garrisoning, which is kind of insane. Like this pet is so good. And I'm sure they could outclass it at some point with something way better. But I think if you invested in a shadow really early, it's got a lot of applicability. I'm also very interested in obviously like building out a Seraphic. I haven't got to the point where that's a thing I'm going to do yet, but we'll see. I got pet stuff to do. I got a little bit of hero stuff to do, but my account is just kind of chilling, which is good because, bro, I got a insane KVK coming up in Rise of Kingdoms. For those that don't know, it's the same folks that make Call of Dragons, that make Rise of Kingdoms. I mean, you know that. You're subscribed to this channel. Anyways, I'm kind of rambling at this point. Long story short, season ended. It was a great season. I look forward to another really great season. Hopefully we're queuing for Dragonfall again, because like I thought that format was awesome where you can't just cheese your way to victory by making obviously imbalanced allies. And yeah, I'll see you in those videos, all right? If you want to see my other predictions, all of cards in the end screen. With regard to future videos while we're kind of in this downtime, of course, news and events I'm going to cover on this channel, but I've got a few video ideas kind of cooking up, like, for example, how I'm going to build my Seraphic. I can't believe I haven't made a video about that yet, so stay tuned for that, all right? Until next time, you have fun smashing your enemies. Take care, everybody.